Welcome to today's video of Math with Jen, Math Magic with Jen. We're going to do place value ideas with whole numbers. So let's go ahead and give it a shot and see what you guys think about today. The first step, base 10, that's our system. I've mentioned it in another video, but in case you don't remember, this is having 10 as the base in an exponent form, or an exponent expression. And we have 10 to the 0, which is 1, 10 to the first, which is 10, 10 to the second, which is 100. And that's how we're getting all of our place values of ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000. And you can keep reading it, but that's where it all comes from, is base 10. And remember that we use the digits 0 through 9. All right. So let's talk about different forms of a number. So first up is the word form of a number. This refers to writing it in words. So this is how we officially read it, and then we want to write it in words. So down here in this chart, you can see we have 117. That would be the word form. Now, the number form using digits is called standard form. So if we go up here, you can see standard form. So when we see a number written with digits, that is our typical standard form, okay? And then expanded form of a number, we've talked a little bit about this in a previous video, but if you haven't seen that one, what ends up happening is that every digit is assigned a place, and we're going to separate it based on that. So for example, 213, that 2, as I already said, is a 200. That 1 in the tens place means that we have 10, and then the 3 in the ones place gives us 3. So this is expanded form. All right. So down here, this is a typical type of problem that you'll see in the second grade Common Core textbook. So they have a standard form column, they have a word form and expanded form. And so they want students to go in between. So for this first one, we would read it 605. Now notice, I did not say the word and. Okay. That's kind of hard not to do, to be honest, but technically you don't want to use and because that is a decimal point. So if you say 605, I'm not going to be mad, but you don't want to write the and in the word form. Okay, so 605. Okay, for expanded form, we can see that 6 is 600. The 5 is 5 ones, and this one doesn't have any tens. So what you could do is just leave it missing, or you could also put a 0 in as a placeholder. It's kind of up to you what you prefer. So it could be 600 plus 0 plus 5, or it could just be 600 plus 5. Okay. If you want to try to fill out the rest of that table, please go ahead. That's totally up to you. But I just wanted to show you an example of what they'll see in second grade. All right. Now, another thing I wanted to let you guys know about what they may see in second grade are some tools. So base 10 blocks are very popular. They are, I've mentioned them in a previous video, but if you haven't seen them before, you have what are called units, are the little tiny cubes. We don't technically call them cubes because base 10 blocks actually have a giant cube. But these are little unit blocks and they represent the ones. These sticks are rods, which are tens. It's kind of hard to tell here, but this is actually a stack of 5 flats. So each flat is just 1 by 100. Okay, so that represents 100. And then lastly, there are giant cubes, which represent 1,000. Okay. How we use them is to have manipulatives to build numbers. So if we wanted to build 213, we would use 2 of the flats. So this would be, those are awful, awful. Let's just pretend that they're beautiful. Okay, so those are the flats. So there's 200. If I was building 213, I need 1 of the 10s, and then I need 3 of the little cubes. Oh, see, even I called them cubes. Little units, blocks. All right. You can also use, if you want in your classroom, play money. Yes, you can see here's a nice little set of play money. Technically, we don't want to use 5s and 20s or 50s because the whole idea of using play money is focusing on place value. So you'd only want to use ones, tens, hundreds. I guess if you were lucky enough to have a set with $1,000 bill, that's great. But otherwise, just ones, tens, hundreds. One last thing of different tools that are used in the classroom are place value discs. Now, these can be actual plastic discs. You can buy sets, you can make your own. This is actually drawn in the textbook in second grade. And you can probably tell just from looking at this picture that they're trying to combine sort of the chart with disc. So what we have here is this is representing the hundred. So I'm just going to write a capital H for hundreds, a capital T for tens, and a capital 0 for ones. Okay. So here, this number, our second graders would see that there's nothing in the hundreds. They would count how many tens, and then they'd count how many ones, and then they would write this in standard form, which is 36. You can see the same things going on over here. We've got our hundreds, we've got our tens, we've got our ones. So again, they're going to have students practice these. Now you'll notice that both of these have a place that's missing. You could have a problem that had all of them there. So it just depends on each problem, right? So we have students that are problems where they give us the discs, other problems where we will write them ourselves. So that's what you're going to see here. So these problems are all either from the second grade Common Core textbook or something similar to it. So as you can see from this first one, it's asking the students to draw a place value disc. So I'm going to just label one more time, capital H, capital T, capital O for hundreds, tens, and ones. And then the whole idea for this in second grade is to get students realizing that this is 72. So we would need 7 tens, and then 2 ones. Now you'll notice that I didn't actually write little tens in here and little ones in here. Oh man, because number one, it's small. It's kind of hard for me to get those numbers and digits in there. But hopefully if you have it labeled, then you can just tell by the labeling that these are going to represent tens and these are going to represent. Up to you how you like to do that. But again, we could have students do hundreds, tens, ones, and build out these numbers. So see, 400, 20, and then 7. Sure you're all watching this, judging me on my circle skills. I don't blame you. They're not perfect. They're all a little bit off. Okay, what I do want to talk about before we finish off this video are these last 3 problems, because the first set's kind of simple. This one, I mean, there's got a little bit of difficulty to it, but these 2 are definitely a lot harder. So let's talk about it. So we have, right, 5 tens plus 3 tens in standard form. So all these are asking for standard form. So that's meaning write it as a number with digits. So there's a couple ways you can do this. You might have some students that go, oh, 5 and 3, that's 8. And oh, 8 tens, I know what 8 tens are. That's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. Okay, now, for those who are thinking, ooh, I don't know if all second graders would get that. Okay, great. This is where the base 10 blocks come into play, or the money, the fake money. So the idea here is that if we had base 10 blocks, in this case, we would use rods. We could have students set up 5 of them, and then set up 3 of them, and then count them all together. Okay, so there's lots of different ways to get our students to make that connection. All right, now, these last 2 that I'm going to talk about, these are harder. And what makes them harder is the fact that it's a number bigger than 10. Having 15 and 28 gets kind of complicated. So what we want students to realize, okay, from going from this example to this example, is that 10 tens, or if you like to think of it, 10 of those sticks, the rods, 10 of those are going to equal 100. Okay, so every time we have 10 tens, that equals 100. Now, you could have them also practice it with plain money if you wanted. That 10 $10 bills would trade for one $100 bill. Okay, So I guess over here, I'll say that it equals one giant flat. Okay, great. All right, so what we want students to do here is make the connection that if you have 15, what's really happening is that these 10 tens are going to turn into 100. So these are going to turn into 100. But I'm going to have 5 tens left over. So 100 plus 50, 150. Okay. Now, you're probably thinking, hey, Jen, can we just use 15 rods or 15 $10 bills and just count it all out? You can, but if we do a problem like this next one with 28, they'd have to have 28 sticks or 28, $10 bills. So we want them to have that aha moment. Maybe they have that aha moment playing with the play money or with the sticks and the trading and stuff like that. But we want them to get to the stage where they're like, oh, 10 of them equals 100. So in this case, we've got 28. Okay. Well, if 10 equals 100, then 20 is 2 tens. So that means that 20 is the same thing as 200. Okay. So I've got 10 tens, that's 100, another 10 tens, that's 200, and then I still have 8 tens. So this is the same thing as 280. Okay. Now, before we wrap up, some of you might be really good at numbers and digits and patterns, and even some of your second graders might be as well. So you might have some students go, can I just add a 0? Hey, I noticed that 28 tens, I would just add a 0 to get 280. And 15 tens, I could just add a 0 and get 150. Does that always work? Okay, well, let's see. 9 tens, what happens if I just add a 0? Is that the same thing? Yes, it is. So although you may think that's cheating, it's not. It's you're noticing a pattern, you're recognizing what's going on, and you should definitely, high five that student or high five yourself and say, yes, I recognize the pattern. So yes, you can just have students get to the point where they're like, oh, I just added 0. Totally fine. Totally. Now, that's for tens. If we changed it to hundreds, like what's 28 hundreds, that's another story. And in fact, I have an example of that in the next video. So for right now, we'll leave it at that and we'll call it good for today, okay? I hope you found this interesting. Go check out Base 10 Blocks, look at some play money, place value disc, see what appeals to you, and check in with me next time for another video. See you later. Bye-bye.